words that are with this one. But basically, this is a kind of a complicated fight, honestly. But it's 2 phases. So phase 1, we're fighting Kyra and either Scene, fuck knows how you pronounce that. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would have thought. It was Signé or something like that. That's how the French would say it, probably. But anyway, so these bosses don't do anything really on their own. Neither does the third boss, even. But Kyra, she simply hits the tank and does like raid damage. Wowhead just says swap on 3. I assume it will be fine for heroic. And the other thing she'll do is spawn a little ad called I don't even know what it's called, but it's a little blob, and it just does like a raid damage interruptible cost. Just kick it, and then at 100 energy, she will pull everyone into the group, in towards her. Sorry. And if you're within 10 yards when the cast ends, you get stunned and take big damage. So you simply, when she starts sucking you in, you just run away from her, and make sure you're not in the circle at the end. And then the other boss. She does 2 casts, one which is just like a single target spam, and the other one is a big raid AoE. It's like a channeled raid AoE, so as soon as she starts it, just kick it. And then at 100 energy, she does the same sort of thing, but instead she pushes everyone back, and you have to run into her circle and be inside of the 10-yard circle when the cast goes off, or you take big damn. And that's basically it for the 2 boss mechanics in that phase. And I'll come on to the Call of the Valkyr in a sec. But when one boss reaches 15%, and it's 20% on Mythic, the third boss will join the fight. And when Kyra and Signé die, they stop doing their mechanics. Although on Mythic, the suck and pull will carry on, but we'll come to that later. When Scourger comes, she has some of her own abilities, one being a large AoE raid damage channel. You can't do anything about it, you just have to out-heal it. Some tank mechanic, I think it makes you like take less healing or something like that, but again, it's just probably a simple swap on 3. And then Link Essence, so this will chain 2 players together and make them take each other's damage. So let's say me and Mott's are paired. If I take like 20k damage, Mott's will take that as well. And if Mott's takes 20k damage, then I'll take that back. So you can imagine that some interesting things can happen with that mechanic. And then the last one is Fragments of Destiny, which is kind of a confusing mechanic at first, but basically 3 players or 4 on Mythic will get this dispellable but infinite duration and stackable debuff. And when someone dispels it, it will jump to the nearest player. So when all 3 shards or 4 on Mythic are on the same player, and you dispel that, it will remove all of the stacks and will form a frost patch on the ground. And also it does damage, by the way. Like I don't think having extra stacks makes you take more damage, but having a stack will make you take a decent amount of damage, which is why we want to get rid of them quite quickly. So the way we should do this, and I'm pretty sure this is the most brain dead way, is have all 3 people just run out to the side who get this debuff, or 4 if it's Mythic, and one healer, let's say Fendi, is just called, okay, dispel someone. Let's say, I don't know, Milo, Yan, Hickey, and Quackjack get it, and she dispels Hickey. Hickey would then run back into the group, and whoever was closest to Hickey, let's say it was Milo, Milo will now be on 2 stacks, and then the other 2 will be on 1 stack each. Then the next person is dispelled. It doesn't matter who it is, because someone will end up with 3 stacks after. Let's say Quack is dispelled, and then I don't even remember who I said now. Yan has 2 stacks. Milo has 2 stacks. Then just one of them gets dispelled by another healer and moves back into the group, and they have 4 stacks now, and you just get rid of them. There's no need to overthink it with like making a massive triangle where everyone's equidistant from someone in the middle to mass dispel it or whatever. Fuck that, we just do it the easy way, just randomly dispel people till it goes away when they've obviously moved into position and you just want to drop the pulls on the edge. I may have like over-explained that mechanic, but it's not as hard as some people have made it out to be in their guides or whatever. So that's the main boss mechanics. Again, the first two don't really fucking do anything, and Skyja doesn't really do much on her own either. But it is this bullshit, the Call of the Valkyr, which is where this fight gets a bit confusing. So basically, this is something that Skyja does, and she does this in phase 1 as well. She basically does Call of the Valkyr, and a combination of 3 of a possible of 6 abilities will happen, but they happen like one after the other. They don't all happen at the same time. And I like mapped out the what I think are the set in stone overlaps you'll get, but again, it could depend on DPS how other things overlap with it. But the mechanics are basically Denathrius style lines like Massacre. You dodge them. One called Impact, which is these big purple circles. You just take them away. Aegis, that will put a shield under the boss, which makes any boss in it take 90% less damage, and it can be baited by the tanks. Falling Strike, purple circles on the ground, which one person needs to stand in and soak. Dirge, which is small 5-yard circles you spread out with. It goes on a lot of people. And then lastly, Crushing Gaze, which is like a big meteor that the raid needs to soak together, which goes on one person. So for example, we could get lines, then Dirge, then Gaze. So we basically dodge the lines, spread out 5 yards, and then when that goes off, we get into soak the Gaze. However, when Skyja lands, this gets a little bit more confusing now, because after each time Call of the Valkyr happens, she will now do recall. So what recall does is it will make all of the 3 mechanics that happened one after another happen at the same time. So in the example I gave here, where it's lines, then dirge, then gaze, imagine having to deal with all of them at once. So dodging lines while spreading out 5 yards while soaking the thing. And that's where the difficulty comes, along with like all the other overlaps or whatever. Luckily though, only like 1 or 2 people need to really know what's going on and be able to make calls, in my opinion. But if you want like some really good like thoughts on this, then I linked a video from Max in Discord, and you can look at the spreadsheet in the relevant section, and you can see what I've written in there already. But basically, we're like phase 1, we're doing this shit, like all of these mechanics individually, plus in heroic, the suck, the pull, the interrupting, the suck and the push, sorry. And then when Skyja lands, we deal with the fragments of destiny, and like the linking players together and just random raid damage. And when the first 2 bosses die, they stop doing their shit on heroic. The only change on mythic is that fragments are throughout the whole fight, and there's 4 of them instead of 3. And the first 2 bosses, they continue gaining energy when they die, and will sometimes come back as non-attackable enemies and do their suck or pull mechanic. Again, I have the overlaps of that written in the spreadsheet. But yeah, this fight probably won't be tuned very hard, but it's quite cool, honestly. There's a lot of interesting things going on here, and like I said, if you're really interested in learning the fuck out of this fight, then definitely check Max's video out. But yeah, I'll end it there on this fight because I don't want to go on for hours about it. Any questions before we move on?
Why is this boss called the 9?
So it's called the 9 because...
I mean, it's kind of stupid, but yeah.
So we have Kyra, Sign, and Skyja. Those are the 3 bosses we fight. Then there's 6 other ones, all of which have a name, which I didn't... I think one's called Agatha, shit like that. And there's 9 of them in total, but we only fight 3. These 6 just do 1 mechanic each and aren't attackable. But that's why it's called the 9.
Interesting lore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. Anything else anyone wants to add before I move on?
Do you think that's a melee favored fight?
None of these fight favor or disfavor melee so far, I'll be honest.
Okay, okay.
All right, Peter, moving on to the next slide.